So anime is pretty weird, isn't it? There isn't a lot of chess in anime, but when it is there, it is always brilliant. A little bit ago, I watched an anime, I know, shame on me, which was called Classroom of the Elite. And it's about a group of super geniuses where there's one extra special super genius. I'm just gonna call him Special Boy. And in season 3, episode 11, there's an episode titled "There's only one rule in love, bring happiness to those you love." And it features chess. Something this anime does, it always starts with a quote. Il n'y a qu'un loi, un sentiment, c'est my French is perfect, and you're allowed to compliment my pronunciation, the comment section.
Kiyotaka's raw talent is simply outstanding.
His raw talent is horrible. It's just constantly ego tripping the protagonist for no good reason. And by the way, you might be thinking, but Red Panda, we have no context for this anime. I don't care. You don't need it. There is Super Genius, and there is the rest. And Super Genius is good.
Don't forget that our organization's primary purpose is to develop excellence in those who have even the most inferior DNA.
Oh, look, a chessboard. I don't know what all that talk about DNA was. I recognized the position. From e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, pawn d4, takes. Here's c3. It's called the Göring Gambit, and it's a very playable line. It's a little bit like the Danish. Here you play bishop c4, because if in the event of black capturing, you actually get a large lead in development. The computer will say that black is a little bit better, but this is kind of complicated to play. So instead, black decides to just develop. Here we take the pawn back, and then we reach the position, right? So if you compare the board, so we've reached this position.
Even if it means breaking him.
Okay, and he played a queen move, which is interesting. The most common move here in the Masters database will be bishop b4. In that event, there aren't really queen moves that make a lot of sense. Pawn d6. Ah, so now there's a queen move. Queen b3. So here we formed this battery, meaning that you need to guard the pawn. This is maybe threatened. So it gets complicated. But it seems like they're actually playing an opening out, which is better than most shows.
We will now begin the final special exam of the school year.
So as you've noticed, they have exams and they need to show how smart and clever they are. And it all has to do with the structure of the school. It's a very ultra-competitive school. So here, one of the challenges was basketball. No, watch it at PowerPoint. Epic basketball. Oh, yeah. PowerPoint slides.
You played basketball before, huh?
That's unfair. It ends and the good team wins. And there we go. The good class wins, which means that our super genius boy, who's the class captain, also wins. Because that's how basketball works.
Round 2 will be a typing battle.
This looks really bad. This looks really bad, guys. But they're just doing a typing battle, it's fine. And then finally, the score is tied. And what will decide it? Ooh, I wonder.
He's never once experienced the warmth of human touch.
That is just common chess player stuff. The rules of the game. It starts with two amateurs playing against each other. And then the super geniuses who control everything behind the screen can swap in whenever they want. Or only past a certain move, I don't know exactly.
Let us now begin the final round of the special exam.
White starts the game, seemingly with pawn to b3, which is called the Nimso-Larsen attack. You have the more common openings, where you control central square directly by putting a pawn on it. Then you have the flank pawn openings, right, like f4 and c4, where we control the center with a flank pawn. And then you have stuff like b3, which looks a little bit weird, because seemingly we aren't really doing anything to contest the center. But the point is, we are going to contest the center with our pieces, and very likely, we're going to try and chip away at it with our pawns later.
I started learning chess a couple months ago.
Okay, so he doesn't know how to play. That being said, black is playing the more reasonable game so far. Okay, so c5. It's actually kind of funny. Here after e4, you can actually transpose into a Sicilian defense. But a sort of weird variation with b3. And you can also play c4, and this looks more like a symmetrical English, which are just names for other openings. Now, the whole point of bringing this pawn up is to fianchetto your bishop. You're essentially building this triangle for your bishop to tuck into this square. This diagonal is longer than this one. And because the bishop is is a piece that controls diagonals, it is kind of intuitive to say that the bishop stands really good on the longest possible diagonal. So the game continued, pawn d5. Black is playing beautiful chess, by the way, putting your pawns in the center of the board before starting to develop your pieces out. And here, white made the first strange move, pawn to d3, which is just simply not a good move. So the more common move, as you can see here by the Masters database, would be to move pawn e3. Now they look pretty superfluous, like what's the big difference? This move, compared to d3, opens up another piece, actually another 2 pieces to join the game. Pawn to d3 actually opens up nothing.
I only recently learned how to play too.
Makes sense. Okay, and we can see more of the board here. Here, as you can see, there is already some strange stuff going on. For example, there's a bishop here developed. This bishop somehow developed outside of the pawn chain, which is not possible. So I'm thinking d3 here was simply an animation error, and the game actually went somewhat different. So how did the game probably go? I kind of reverse engineered the position. So I'm thinking here actually the more normal pawn to e3 was played. Knight c6 is a normal move. Here bishop e5, establishing a pin. The main battle currently is for center control, so black is threatening, let's say we ignore completely, to push the pawn to e5. And this gives black a lovely position, because if you control the center, you have more freedom of deploying your material. You also just have better control over the board. So we play bishop b5, so that now if e5 is played, we can simply capture. So here knight f6 has likely been tried, which is a pretty normal move. There's a principle in chess called knights before bishops. And here we can see that white is kind of doing the opposite, where both bishops has already been developed and black has developed their knights. Knight f3 is played, just developing more material. A big alternative is whether you want to play your f-pawn first, because after the knight comes here, this pawn obviously can't move anymore. So you could play something like f4, just to control this square even more. But white decides to play knight f3, nothing wrong with that at all. Pawn to e6. You castle short, bishop goes to d6, pawn d3. Here you can play a lot of things. As you can see here, c4 has been tried, d4 has been tried. We need to gain equity back in the center, because currently black has dominant center control. After you've committed to d4, you can notice this bishop is now blocked out, which is why white might not want to do this. So instead white is playing d3, which can mean 2 things. Either we want to break here anyway, or we want to break with e4. Very likely here black castled, knight to d2, rook e8. This move is kind of clever. Simply we're trying to further control e5, and you can see that black's pieces are kind of poised to support this pawn push. White here decides to play for e4, and here black played e5. And then we reach the position we currently see on the board here. So what's going on in this position? Black has the dominant center. However, it's really quite hard to keep that central position. After we take over here, we have a bind on white's position, but we can immediately capture, which damages the structure somewhat, and hop our knight in. Now there's a lot of pressure on this pawn over here. And so the computer is suggesting f6, where we win the bishop heir back. And while black has more space in the center, we've managed to trade off some material. And black also has its glaring weaknesses. So you can see the computer is now suggesting a plan to reroute the knight. There might then also be a plan to play bishop a3, which is pretty common in the opening called the Nimzo-Indian. So let me just put something random on the board. And here you see bishop to a3. So while yes, black's position looks pretty comfortable because we have more space in the center, white can very easily chip away at it by rerouting the knight and then posing their pieces in such a way that we're targeting these weak pawns. Let's see how play continues. Yeah, we take the pawn, like I showcased. Of course, we have to take back. Very good. So they're playing pretty quickly, but as you can see, both players have about an hour. If you're out of the open and you want to take some time to think. Yeah, beautiful. Suddenly a lot of time has passed. Here I suggested the move bishop takes knight, but knight e4 is also completely sensible. We see the bishop drop back to b8. Black does not want to surrender the bishop here. However, I will scratch my head a little bit on the exact placement of the bishop. To me, bishop c7 simply makes a lot more sense.
That was a pretty clever move, don't you think?
Bishop b8 was actually not a very clever move. I think you're full of wind and your moves don't make sense and you're bad at chess.
So, am I right?
I'm not sure what you were expecting.
By the way, they're doing all of this chatting. You're not supposed to talk. That is like clearly against the rules. Oh, and she slammed the queen down.
This is starting to get interesting.
Ah, and here we get a good view of the board. Compared to this board, white has managed to pull the knight back and move the queen up 1 square. And in that same time span, black has pushed the knight to f4 and developed the bishop to d7. Play must have developed with knight to g3. Now, I don't know if now knight f4 was played or bishop d7. I'm just gonna assume that that was played. The amazing, like, highlight of a move. Oh, queen d2, which is a horrible move. And then we see knight to f4, which makes a lot of sense. And at this moment, the black player said it's starting to look interesting, which is true. I mean, if I was playing a chess game at this moment, I'd also be like, yes, it's looking very interesting for me now. I'm very happy. Think about what changed in the position. There's a pawn hanging on c5. White also has some pressure building on the position. And in that meantime, white has managed to make two moves. Knight to g3, which brings a piece out of the center where it targets a pawn. So this is just a bad move. Black managed to develop a piece for unpinning the knight and play the move queen d2, which seems to not really do that much. Black has in that time managed to go forward with their pieces. Black just improved the position while white kind of did nothing.
If we keep losing ground like this, it seems our game will only end in one way. I suppose it's time I got involved.
So she completely misevaluated the position. She's saying if we keep losing ground, then the game will only go one way. That implies that she thinks she's losing. I do not know for the life of me how any competent chess player rated above, like, let's say 1200 elo would evaluate this as a losing position for black or a worse position for black. You might certainly misevaluate. You might think that you only have a small advantage when in reality you're much, much better. But thinking that you're worse here is just complete nonsense. What about the position screams to you that you're worse? Black has solved all their problems of pressure on the center and potentially damaging of the structure. So what about this position screams we are worse? Which is something that a lot of these shows do. They'll portray someone as a chess grandmaster and then they'll say these cool things like, if we keep losing ground then we might lose. I should get involved. And yes. But then you look at the game and it's just nonsense. So yeah.
Normally, I'd like to handle things by myself.
So here, as you can see, now the captains can start the game. Now we can say Special Boy and the woman, who was also really smart. They're both playing now. Nothing about the board has changed. It should actually be white to move. But for some reason, just black made a move. Yeah, the board is the exact same. Somehow, white has managed to pass a move. Black got a free move in, and the advantage dropped. Look, right now it's minus 1.3, which is a bigger number than minus 0.7. And here we've made a free move. So the moment that our super cool and smart and epic chess grandmaster got involved, they played a move illegally, 2 moves in a row, that made the position worse. That's impressive. I could have played any arbitrary pass for free and it would still be white to move and my position would be better. So being able to make a move that doesn't improve your position but makes it worse is an impressive feat of stupidity. Okay, we see a bunch of black moves in a row. So presumably they're just breaking the rules even
Is the
more.
gap in our abilities truly this wide?
Well, not really. You just made a couple moves that didn't do anything to improve your position. You were actually much better out of the opening.
When do you plan on stepping in to help?
Well, presumably after she stops making bad moves. And we see another board position. The bishop was under attack. We know a4 wasn't played. The bishop-knight trade happened. White decided to capture here. We took back with the bishop. So what happens after bishop takes? Well, this pawn here is actually liable to a bit of a tactic. So if you count, there are 2 attackers and there are 2 defenders. So you might be thinking, we can't take it. However, we actually can. Here, if we take, and let's say we trade one more time, we've lost a piece, but at the end, the pawn was the defender of this knight. Now that the pawn is gone, this knight is actually completely hanging. So if it was Anya Kochi, this would probably be the moment that I would step in. So presumably we took, which is actually why queen takes. Here is the better move, because now if we go for the same tactic, thinking we're undermining the defender of the knight, there's queen takes g2, which is a checkmate. And here's something weird happens. The bishop has moved and the rook has moved. In white's position, the only thing that's changed is the position of the queen. So the queen stood on d2, and here the queen stands on e2, meaning that the only thing that I can assume happened is that white here went for the amazing play, queen d1, knight back, queen to d2, bishop d6, queen to e2, and then rook to d8. Meaning that rather than, you know, trying to do anything in the position here, white simply decided, I am just gonna move my queen around for no reason.
Against each other in a fair match.
I don't know if it's a fair match. Either white shuffled the queen around multiple times, or you did the thing that you did when you played queen to b6. You made just a bunch of illegal moves in a row for yourself. Okay, and we see another board. So white must have played knight f5. We must have pushed this pawn. We must have captured. Black also played h6, which is not a good move. There's a winning move, knight to f4, which opens up the bishop's attack on the pawn while hitting the queen. It's also protected by the bishop, so knight f4. And then after queen to d2, rather than taking immediately, the computer prefers bishop b8, because this queen is now horribly stuck. If we go over here, let's say, it's still under attack. Either the rook or the bishop's gonna take, threatening a discovery. And let's say after we go something like queen to c1, that's a horrible move because of knight e2, which is just a fork. So now it's black to move, for some strange reason. And rather than attacking the queen and winning a pawn, we bring our knight back, because it was totally under attack. Of course, the super scary threat of losing your own queen convinced this really smart chess grandmaster or whatever to move the knight back to f6. Again, a horrible move, because bishop takes f6 simply damages the pawns in front of the king, and it also loses this pawn. But okay, rather than simply taking over here, we push our pawn up to e5, which is a nonsensical move. It looks like a fork, but again, there is a queen on the other side, so this move does nothing. So again, these people are presumably super geniuses, but every chess player with a brain here would immediately play this. This is not a hard move to find. So yeah, really poor play so far. Like, this makes no sense. And queen b4. Again, this move doesn't do anything. You don't need to be a super genius to try and come up with moves that do things. So what is queen b4? Like, explain to me, what does this move do?
Thoughts on my playstyle, Ayana Koji?
Pathetic. Really bad. The only thing you do in positions is shuffle wooden pieces around in ways that don't make logical sense, don't do anything, and in fact just blunder the game away for no reason. So your playstyle is subpar to say the least, and in reality it's just really bad chess, and you should be ashamed.
I hope you can feel how much this means to me.
Oh, I do.
Oh, it means a lot to her. In that case, you're playing really good chess, sweetheart. You can be proud of yourself. I'll put the game on my fridge, okay?
If I make a mistake, you'll completely overwhelm me.
No, clearly not, because she keeps throwing the game away every other move.
I seriously doubt someone of your caliber would ever make even the smallest of unforced errors.
Even chess engines will make small inaccuracies from time to time, so that's just complete nonsense.
Since you won't make a mistake, I'll just have to crush you with pure ability.
And just simply crush you with pure ability. And finally we reach this position, which is actually a position from a composition. So I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to solve it. So this is the position. The last move, presumably there was a knight on this square and the queen captured the knight, which sacrifices the queen. And now white is actually winning. So if you look at the material count, it's clear white is up a rook. So if we can survive black's attack, it's very obvious to see that we have some form of advantage. You can try and solve it from yourself from here. Pause the video and figure it out. I'm gonna give a quick breakdown of the position now. So what's going on? The queen is of course hanging. So what happens if we take? Well, if we take the queen over here, it's actually a forced checkmate. If the previous position was maybe too difficult to figure out, here you can try and find the checkmate for the black pieces. So the solution here, rook g6, check. The king has only one legal move, and then we take the pawn over here. This is just checkmate. So we sacrifice the queen. Obviously, the move can't be pawn takes queen. So how do we solve this position? So mechanically speaking, we can't accept this queen sacrifice because there is this forced checkmate. So something that you might try and figure out is a way that we can, before taking the queen, disturb this mechanism somehow. If we do any arbitrary move like pawn a3, that's of course queen takes g2 with the immediate checkmate. So we need to make a move that disturbs this forced maiden pattern while also not blundering queen g2 mate. Again, if you couldn't figure it out before, pause the video and try and find the solution, and I'll give the answer to you now. So there's actually two solutions, but they both revolve around the same idea. And that idea is the brilliant move, queen to g5. And this move is very pretty. What is the purpose? First of all, we're defending the g2 square. Second of all, if the queen is accepted, we're actually closing up this diagonal. Meaning that now, out of nowhere, this queen is actually capturable. This is called an attraction sacrifice. We're sacrificing our queen on an empty square in order to attract a pawn or a piece to that square. Now we can take the queen, and rook g6 now it doesn't come with check anymore. If we go queen g5 and we try something like rook g6 now, we can actually just take the rook. Now both queens are heading. We're still guarding the g2 square. If we move the queen away, I move my queen away, and I'm just up 2 rooks. And then the other move, like if I move the queen away now, I can probably do the same. And now if you try rook g6, an attempt to put even more pressure on the g2 pawn. We can play queen b8 check. I actually don't know if that's strictly necessary, but it's the cleanest and I think the most human solution. And then the move pawn to f3. This pawn here is pinned, but there is of course the rook over here. And this is simply winning. The other solution is actually queen d8, because if rook takes, we can take over here and it also there isn't a check. But now of course the king can move. And now still, I believe there's only one winning move. Yeah, still the only winning move now is queen to g5 again. So you can see that's like, yeah, they're like two winning moves, but essentially they both revolve around the same idea. This is just a beautiful move. Now in the show, something weird goes on.
This is it.
Unfortunately the game here ended with the mate. Mr. Super Genius actually wanted to play this move, but then the evil like school people like manipulated the game so that actually this move came through. Which, I mean, okay.
That was brilliant, Ayana Koji. There's no doubt in my mind that an ordinary person wouldn't be able to make a play like that.
There's no doubt in my mind that an ordinary person could accept the queen sacrifice and get checkmated. What a nonsense comment. That would be all. If you're interested in seeing more stuff like this, let me know in the comments. Feedback like that usually really helps. Also let me know if you don't want to see more stuff like this. And then I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.